So it's part 2 of lesson 1. In our breakout groups, we've been doing a little bit of research about some of the basics of PHP. So our first group said PHP, has a large choice of specialists. There is lots of documentation. The speed is not great, but it's getting better. It's compatible and it does work well with HTML. It's open source and it works on cheap hosts. Absolutely. We'll talk about hosting later in the course, but we can host a PHP site for like a few bucks a month. An important thing to note are our PHP tags. So all PHP code blocks have to be enclosed in these opening and closing tags. We also note that it's case sensitive. And our files will all the pages we're going to build in this course will have .php extensions. Variables start with the $. Yep, these are some of the big sites. So it's an interpreted server-side language and it communicates with HTML. Yeah, and it provides, that's right, it gives us most of the interactivity. Remember, HTML is dumb. Browsers are a dumb interface and HTML is a dumb language. It's just markup. It's only for presentation. There's no real functionality or logic to working with HTML, which is why we need some kind of server-side language like PHP in order to build functional applications. So those are some great answers. Thank you. Okay, so Sarah, Belinda, Caleb, Kieran, Mina, and Jinyu. Just go over some of the important stuff. Yeah, so PHP is for doing tasks that HTML can't do, like forms, security, reading files, talking to a database. Absolutely. So most of kind of the everyday functions of modern web applications are handled by languages like PHP. Yeah, it lets us have membership sections and restrict access and do other kinds of interactive tasks. So yeah, you also mentioned the opening and closing tags, expressions end with semicolons. We'll see what happens when we try and write PHP code without semicolons. Comment style is like in Java. So // single line, multi-line, //. Yep, constants are case sensitive, and we use curly brackets for a block of code. Okay, that's a good list. And this is one of the important things. We need a web server to run PHP. So in your HTML fundamentals class with Scott, you could just create an HTML file and open that file in your browser. But browsers can't interpret PHP code. We need a web server for this. So we're going to have to install a web server on our computer in order to work locally. Now we'll also deploy our pages to the AWS web server, but for speed to work locally, we're going to need a local web server, and we'll look at where to get one for free. So the server takes the PHP, processes the code, but it only sends the HTML output to the browser. This is why PHP is called a server-side language, because the code is only visible on the server. It's not visible in the user's browser. Great answers. Okay, thanks. Tyler, Japil, Jin Yang, Owen, Hamid, and Jashan. What do we have to add? Yeah, it's compatible. It's easy and simple. So PHP is a great starter language. And we can be productive with it quite quickly. So we've talked about our PHP code blocks. Yeah, typically we are going to need PHP extensions. We use the echo command to display something like a message to the screen. And we've got common programming keywords like if, else, and while that you would have learned in your programming fundamentals in your Java class. Yep, so PHP loads the code, it parses it, and then executed it. Great answers, thank you. Okay, so Josh, and you posted the same. Thank you. No problem. That's fine. And thank you, Nick, Spencer, Amit, Andres, Eric, and Masatsugo. Yep, good community support. It's flexible integrates nicely with HTML. There's lots of legacies code. PHP is very mature. It's been around for a long time. Okay, so some really useful notes. So we can refer back, and a number of the questions in this week's quiz, you've basically answered in this activity. So most of the questions, you can find the answers in this discussion board posting. So let's look a little more carefully about why we need PHP. Okay. Let's go and look at, let's pull up a couple sites. So using the chat, Belinda, the quiz will be available. It's in the week 2 folder, and it will open at 11 a.m. today. So once class is over, you'll be able to do the quiz, but you have until Sunday to complete it. And it's only 5 questions. Okay, so let's look at a couple of websites and try to get a sense of how this all works. Tell me, use the chat, what's the first website you go to every day? Okay, you go, okay, so we've got Google, we've got Gmail, we've got YouTube. Okay, so let's go off to YouTube. Let's go here. So when we look at YouTube, I shouldn't probably go in Firefox. Justin goes to DuckDuckGo. Here, let's go here. Go to YouTube. Okay, so on this page, what items are static? What items are going to be the same no matter what page I go to? Okay, the search bar, yep. Search bar is going to be here no matter where I go. Yep. The menu is going to be here. Yep. So the nav will be here. True. Yeah, the logo, our little hamburger menu. Yeah, so those things are going to be pretty much whatever page I'm on, those things are going to be static. Yeah, the creator options, those will be static as well. What things are not static? What things are going to be dynamic? Yeah, the notifications icon, yeah. So the content, so what I see in the page. What else is dynamic? Yep, the recommended videos are going to be dynamic based on what I've watched before, who I am. Anything else that changes that might be different yeah, the ads are going to be different because Google is so invasive, it knows a lot about me. Notice here, I've got a plugin. You don't see this on Firefox. I've added a plugin that blocks all of that stuff from YouTube. Anything else that's dynamic, that changes? If you go to your YouTube page, what do you see that's different from what we see on my page? The ads, videos, and content. What about on the left side? What's different on your YouTube page? Yeah, the thumbnails, yeah, that would be part of the content. Yeah, the subscriptions. So most of what's here is actually dynamic, right? Yeah, the playlists as well are going to be different. So most of what's here is actually, yeah, the mode, right? The name. Yep, the recommended keywords in the search bar. Yep. So most of the content is actually dynamic here. Okay, so that's YouTube. Let's go here. This is the first site I usually look at most days is here. Yeah, the recommended subjects as well. Thanks, Belinda. So almost everything. If we look here, I'm a big kind of news junkie. So if I scroll top to bottom, what is static here? What elements would be the same or similar no matter where I go? Yeah, the nav's going to be pretty similar. The logo, pretty much everything in the header. Yeah, the profile access would be here. And the footer is going to be pretty much the same. Yep. Virtually everything between the header, under the header, and above the footer, right? This is all dynamic content, right? If I come back here in an hour or tomorrow, everything is going to be different. The stock ticker is dynamic. It actually updates almost in real time, minute by minute. The articles, statistics, images, almost everything here. So almost all the content is dynamic. Let's maybe look at one more. What's a site you shop at? The last time you bought something online, what site did you buy it on? Okay. Go to Amazon or Old Navy. Sure. Well, Sarah, you were first, so let's go to Old Navy. Pants I've got on today, they're from Old Navy. So how much of this site is dynamic? What's dynamic and what's static here? Okay, RSS feed if it has, yeah, that'd be dynamic. Yeah, again, the nav is going to be static in the profile access, and the footer, yep, so that's static. The logo, yep, that'll be static. Probably any page I go to, it's going to have the logo. And what stuff is dynamic? What stuff changes? I picked them just for me, great, because I need a women's oversized V-neck long sleeve t-shirt apparently. Yeah, so the items, what they recommend, the content, the sales, the coupons and promotions, almost everything here is dynamic. Almost all the content between the header and footer. So you probably start to see a pattern here, right? We looked at YouTube, we looked at the Globe and Mail, we looked at Old Navy, and in most cases, there's some kind of like static, the logo and the navigation, whether it's top or side. And then the footer, YouTube, I don't think really has a footer because it's got the endless scroll. So it doesn't even give us a footer. But all of the content, the reason we actually come to the website, whether to shop or read the news or watch videos, it's all dynamic. So where does all this stuff live? Like, YouTube didn't make a page for this video, right? There's not an HTML file for this performance by Mumford & Sons. Right? No matter what video I click, you'll notice it actually goes to the same URL, but it just passes in a different identifier. Yeah, that's right, Viraj. All of the content lives in the database. Right? So in YouTube, all the video content, all the subscriptions, all the playlists, it lives in the database. On Old Navy, all the categories, all the clothing items, all the sales and promotions, everything lives inside of the database. And on Globe and Mail, same. All the news content, all the articles, the writers, the photos, the user comments, everything lives in the Globe and Mail database. So if all this content lives in the database, remember, HTML is dumb. HTML, it can only display content, but there's no logic to it. So if I want to read this article or look at this product or watch this video and see the comments and descriptions and likes, I need a way to be able to retrieve this data from the data that I want from the database. So this is where PHP comes in. Here's me. We're making a request to a web server. Show me the Mumford & Sons video, or show me the fleece sweater from Old Navy, or show me the article about vaccine mandates. This content all lives inside a database somehow. So we make this request to the server by clicking on a video link. Show me this video. And PHP, or another server-side scripting language, it interprets that instruction. It talks to the database. It says, fetch this product or this article or this video, send it back, and then the PHP page is going to render some HTML, send it to the server so that we can view it in our browser. This is how every web application we use works. So we don't have to use PHP. We could use other languages like JavaScript or C# or Java, Ruby on Rails, but we need some kind of server-side scripting language to handle the logic of interacting with the database. And this is why you guys are taking this course, and you're also taking it concurrently with the relational database course. Who's your instructor for relational database? I know you haven't had the class yet. We've had different people teach that over the years. Who's your instructor for relational database this year? You have it sometime this week. Okay, you've got Darcy. That's great. Darcy's been with us a long time in teaching databases. So Darcy's going to teach you how to create and structure and manipulate databases. And a lot of the work you do in that class, it's going to mesh and integrate really well with the work we're doing in this class. They're going to reinforce each other. So what we're doing in this class is we're using PHP so that we can build these kinds of dynamic websites where we could show video content, we could show product content, we could show news content, and let users interact by placing orders or making comments or adding reviews, for example. So here's the site we built in this class last year. So last year, the students built a video game library. So we had a list of games in our database. We could upload photos to them. And if I remember my login, we could register and log in for the website. I'll just quickly register. So this is what we're going to be building together in class, a site kind of like this one. Whoops, my passwords don't match. And now I can sign in. And now when I'm signed in, not only can I see our games, but I could go in and I could add, edit, or delete a game. So we're not going to build this exact site. And when I log out, now I can see the games, but I can't add, edit, or delete. So this is what we're actually going to be doing Monday mornings. Why we're going to wake up early. We won't build a gaming site. We'll build something else. So every week, we're going to add new features onto it. First, we'll be able to create games. Then we read. We'll update, delete. We'll add security and some other stuff. So this is why I'm going to get you out of bed Monday mornings. But these sites, Old Navy or Globe and Mail or YouTube, they all actually work the same way. So we've got this server-side language that's interacting with our database, maybe with files in our file system, like for uploading the images. Maybe we want to send emails out. So the cool thing is we're going to use all this technology to build working sites. And by the end of this course, you should be able to build almost any kind of website, dynamic website, because the fundamentals of them are all the same. And what's even better news is that to most people, they think this is magic, right? Wow, like how can I read the news on my phone, lying in bed in the morning? How does this work? Well, so long as people think it's magic, then they'll pay us to build them. So by the end of our course, my goal is to have you confident that you could be given any kind of requirement. That's right, Brett, Belinda. You are the wizards. Whatever somebody needs, the fundamentals of all of this is just this stuff. Interacting between a database, HTML, using a server-side scripting language. That's all web programming is. So that's going to be our focus. And then in later courses, we'll use more advanced technologies. So that's where we're going and what we want to do in the class. That's great. I've taught it many times. I never get tired of teaching it, right? So ultimately, all web applications is really just ones and zeros living in a database and writing code that gets translated to ones and zeros that can interact with our database. And these slides are on Blackboard. I won't go over all of them. So, well, we didn't look at Facebook. We looked at YouTube. We didn't look at Amazon, right? But a store like Old Navy, like in the database, this is what it would have: the products, the categories, the customers. Globe and Mail, their database is going to have the articles, all the stuff we can see on the website. These are really just buckets of information in the database. So databases are not necessarily sexy, for lack of a better term, but that's what powers all modern web applications. Because all of the content we see are actually just records. They're stored in a database somewhere, on a server. Okay, so in order for us to be able to start on this, one thing we're going to need is we're going to need a web server. So I've got a server installed, and I may have neglected to put the link on Blackboard. Oh no, it's here. So if you jump into under Weekly Learning, the first folder, which is Useful Links, Tools, and Resources. And if you scroll down here about halfway down, more than this item, connecting to the web server. Well, these are instructions. The first part of this is instructions on how to connect to the AWS server. I presume you've already done this in Scott's course. So everybody, I believe, has the OpenVPN connection. You already know how to connect to AWS and upload your files. So for your assignments, yeah, you're going to want to run your assignments up on AWS. But when we're working in class, it's actually faster to just use your local server. And that way, every time we make a change, we don't have to upload it and refresh. We can just save our files. So there's a couple of options here for installing a local web server. You can use XAMPP. I would recommend XAMPP. That's the local web server that I've got. And you can get it from here. I'll put the link in the chat as well. It's a free program. It runs on any operating system. So I know there's probably some Mac users in the class, which is fine. XAMPP will run. You can also install MAMP if you're on Mac, but I would recommend using XAMPP. That's probably just going to be a little simpler. So if you jump over to Apache Friends, choose your operating system. It's not a big program. So download XAMPP with PHP 8. Run the installer. I'll just pause the recording here. Again, maybe just give me a thumbs up when you're done that process. I'll give you a few minutes to do this. If you need help, by all means, feel free to ask for help. Resume my recording. I'll just go over that again. So we started the XAMPP control panel. We click Start beside the Apache web server. It turns green. And then if we just browse to localhost, it loads the XAMPP homepage. So I now have a working web server on my own computer. And then in Windows, if I go to C and XAMPP, we have a whole bunch of files here, but our web pages will all go inside this special folder called htdocs. And you'll notice I've got a whole pile of folders here that you won't have, but here's this dashboard folder. And here's the index.html page that we're seeing. If I add index.html, it loads the same file. There's also this page here. There's a link. You see it says PHP info. If you click it, it runs a PHP script that shows us a bunch of information about our environment. The operating system, all kinds of info about our server. What folder we're in. So that's under this dashboard that comes when we install XAMPP. So Belinda, it would be inside of XAMPP and htdocs. So I went to C, XAMPP. So all the pages we're going to build, so Nick, coming to your question, any folder or file we want to run, it will have to go inside of htdocs. Okay, so everything we save is going to be inside of here. This is where all our files will live on our local computers. Anybody using a Mac can tell us you should have a XAMPP folder, but I'm not sure what the exact path is. I'm not sure if it's in your USR directory. If somebody's on a Mac and found the XAMPP folder, maybe you can tell us where it is exactly.
I'm on Windows, and by default it just installs to your disk and under the folder xampp on the root
Right.
of whatever it is. So
Yes.
maybe try something similar for that.
Yep. Good suggestion, Tyler. It will definitely be close to the root. For sure. Okay. All right. It is 9:50, so we've installed our server and gotten it running. We're not going to do a ton more today, but now that our server's up, I think it's about time we take a little break. Let's take 10 minutes here and we'll just play around and write a couple really simple PHP scripts just to get a bit of a feel for it and see how it works with our web server. Okay, so we will take a 10-minute break here. We'll come back at a couple minutes after 10 and we'll just play around with some slow and easy PHP. Okay, we will come back in 10.